Well, I hope. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Terry, holding your space, and this is Diana Boyles. How you doing, Diana?
Awesome, awesome. Getting
Good.
some work done, getting some chores done. Rainy and a little muggy because the rain has stopped. But they're telling us that there's going to be severe thunderstorms with 100-mile-an-hour winds. And I don't think I'm in that area, but of the 100-mile, but I can still get some strong winds through here on a normal day.
Wow. Do you
So,
have um what is it? Like is this from the hurricane?
um, no, it's too soon for that to be here for us.
Yeah.
Um, it's coming down from Canada.
Oh,
Last
wow.
I saw the rain that we've been having, so it all has. Plus, they just had a bunch of wind yesterday that really spread the fire again.
So sorry.
Mm-hmm. It's very
That's
sad.
horrible. Yeah. Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about this is another in our series of universal laws and truths. And today we're going to talk about the law of energy, um, frequency, and vibrations, but it used to be called the law of powers. So, love that. Anyway,
Yes.
yeah, I think it'll be fun. Um, um, so, I studied the universal laws and truths way back when. And then, of course, they're part of everything, aren't they?
They are. I mean, and they all wash into each other. It's like how can you separate them even? If you start out with the first one, you can't help but end up with next of them, whether
Yeah,
you choose to practice them or not. They are there, and when you're aware of them, you raise your vibration instead of getting trapped or caught in a vibration, right?
yeah.
Since we're dealing with the second law today. But
Well,
that still brings us to the connectedness of one. So how do you separate that? You can't, right?
there isn't a separation. Deepak was on a show with somebody recently, and it was another big guru person, whoever they were, and they were talking about it, and they said separation. That's the entire key of everything. That we remembering that we're not separated.
How true. Yes, how
Yeah,
true. Namaste, right?
yeah.
Um, well, I sent you a link earlier to a Greg Braden video that I saw a long time ago when it first was released. And it talks about atoms and DNA and testing that they were doing on this way back in 1909. So this is nothing new.
Yeah,
And it was a way of proving that the calmer vibration helps the DNA twist to relax and create a new thread of DNA. And I can recommend that everybody sees this video because, of course, he explains it much better than I can. But it deals with atoms and the molecules and the protons and the neutrons and all of that, and how we can't touch an atom, but we can touch the table.
yeah.
And
And
in touching the table, we are resting on the vibration. That vibration shows us the color. We can't feel the vibration of the atom, but we can feel the texture of the wood. And that is created by the vibration of the atom.
yeah, and it well, once again, senses, working with the senses, and we did that in meditation. We do that in meditation all the time, but working with the physical senses, then working with the um, non-causal senses, and where you're in your emotions and feeling them, and then working with them and the akash. mind, Brahman, the super consciousness, field of super consciousness, and that's all vibration, isn't it?
It is. I was actually very sorry I missed your meditation this morning, but I had a good rabbit hole last night in this movie, and I couldn't stop watching it because it was based on historic fact about a queen in India who began the movement to separate India from England, to get rid of that. And she was the queen of India during Victoria's time and the East India Trading Company,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
all that. And she taught women how to fight, and they still have a brigade to this day that was begun for the sake of the freedom of India. And her name was Rani, Rani, and she's monumental in getting that whole Freedom Act started for them. But another thing that you were talking about with your meditations, yesterday morning when I was there, I'm oming in my head, right, and listening to you, and you were running down instruments that people might be playing, right? And you had said banjo, and I got an image, and I saw an accordion, and I heard somebody say accordion, and it was the next one. There we are in this through electronics to catch what it was you were going to say next.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why. Hello, everybody in the chat. By the way, thanks for being here, and Val is here today from Illumination Portal, and we've got to have her on next time to talk
Yeah.
about all this. Um,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So about like attracting like and vibration, and how that's a real reason that community has come together, that we've all come together because we are of a higher vibration, and then we lift each other up. And I see like this big cliff that we have surpassed, because there's light worker on top of light worker on top of light worker, and there's a hand reaching down and pulling each one of us up. And it's just like, it just gives me chills because it's just a beautiful thing.
It is. It is. Um, Tesla explained the law of vibration as energy plus frequency equals vibration. And I have it a little different in my head. I always feel like the vibration has to come before the frequency. So that it's energy and vibration equals frequency, because frequency is a pattern. But I'm not the scientist here, right? And those guys
Well,
are study for this stuff. I just study what they tell me.
well, and that's such a quantum physics thing, isn't it? Because uh, what came first, the consciousness or the universe? And is there really a universe, or is it just all consciousness?
And right, and then enter the polarity of it all, because that's what an atom does in its own way. So there's another video out there that I couldn't find that I really wanted to touch base again, but it explains the new thinking of the nucleus of the center, and that they're not really spinning in there, they're just vibrating and moving and staying put right in that center, with the protons going around, of course. But they used to think that these guys were rolling against each other. They create the heat that creates the color just by the vibration, and they kind of rotate around like daddy penguins in a rookery. The guy in the center who's warm now has to take his turn from the guy out there who's been guarding them all this time. So frequency causes vibration. That's what I think, but that's not the way Tesla put it. We naturally attack what we vibrate and repel. So
Yeah.
either or. And even in an atom itself, that is exactly what it's doing. It is repelling and continually bringing you back, which brings us right back to that polarity, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we discussed last week.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, also, um, that high vibration attracting a lower vibration is positive and negative hypnicity. Yes, thank you. Chicken and the egg thing, right?
Yeah,
And um, and that brings up that lower vibration, and it's not necessarily a lower vibration. I think it's just a different vibration, right?
exactly.
It,
Exactly.
there's nothing. I think lower and higher puts a judgment on it, and there is no judgment of energy.
Right. Because we have to have iron, right? We
Yeah.
discovered it. It's there. It's in our blood. It's in our bones. It's in the earth. And now we use it for so many different things in life. There was the whole age dedicated to the Iron Age, just different dances in the same production. Exactly.
Brilliant,
Um,
Teresa. I love that.
so, oh, I forgot where I was headed with this.
Um, Iron Age, and we needed the Iron Age.
Right. So we found other uses for it. And in finding those other uses for it, we changed the vibration of its original structure, which could take you back to the DNA of iron, if there is such a thing, right? And how that vibration changes the DNA and makes it create a different strand that changes that vibration, raises it or lowers it for whatever use you're making the iron for. If you're cooking in a pot, I mean, I still use cast iron for my
I do
frying
too.
pans around here.
Yeah, I have a cast iron
Like,
frying pan and a big cast iron stew pot.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes, that's my Dutch oven is that one.
yeah,
My I have
that's what
another
it
one
is.
that is coated, that's even deeper, and
Yeah,
then there's the kettle
yeah.
or the cauldron, I should say.
I have one of those too, the big La Crozette that I got it from my late husband for my Christmas one year and like 20 some odd years ago. And I'm like, okay, how much longer in my lifetime will I be able to lift this thing?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Well, if you're garage sailing it, I'll take it. Of
Yeah,
course, I don't know how you are when you move to Michigan.
there you
You can
go.
drop it off on your way up to Escota.
Push it out the truck and there it rolls.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and this all works with the law of attraction and so many other laws, doesn't
Oh,
it?
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's your own energy field as well, right? Because what we're vibrating attracts others of like mind. And
Mhm.
it either repels or continues to pull it together and we elevate together. Or, we just vibrate up and down together, we undulate together. So we go from our own energy field and then we connect to a family of light from there. And then we step into protection and clearing of negative energies. From there, it's like cleaning house, right? Clearing out the ego and the wounds in order to try to raise it even higher. Because as empaths, isn't that kind of what we're working towards? Trying to not just not just raise the vibration of the world, but heal what's inside of us that sometimes we forget about, the deep-seated wounds that go back to our childhood, to the mean cheerleader in high school, to
Yeah.
the, you know.
I read something really interesting about that, about um, sometimes we come back in different lifetimes and go through a lot of trauma because we are interested in um, feeling the vibration frequency of that because we're the embodiment of light and to be able to transmute light into those wounds. And that was really interesting to me. But also to reset like a dial, like and it's funny because my guide showed me dials when I was a little tiny thing, and entities would come into the room that I didn't want to see. They said, "Well, just put your face in your pillow, and turn the channel just like a television, and you have a dial there." but it's a way
Love that.
it's a way that we learn to manipulate frequency and vibration by just turning that dial.
And Hypnicity can catch on to this one too, because she's in music a lot, and it's that the harmonics of that odd frequency. It's like the way Roger Daltrey sings. He's like just a hair off from
I
everybody
love
else.
that.
He's like a quincunx. He's a 5. He's not a 4 and he's not a 3, which is easier to synchronize. But he's a 5. He's an
Yeah.
odd,
Yeah.
and everybody still plays with him, and it melds beautifully. It's like the bump in the road that throws the music off in the car. You know, the old dials that we used to have back when there was only AM radio. Back in those days.
Who is that? Wolfman Jack?
Yes. Wolfman Jack.
It's almost midnight. Not the Soul Train. It was the Soul Train, and there was whatever that other one was at midnight.
Well, there was Rockin' with the Robin on Keener Radio, and he was nationwide because it was Robin. Oh God, his last name just went, but that's what he went by, was Rockin' with the Robin. Yeah, who was the other guy who was very famous? And he used to do the number 100 countdowns on 100.
Oh yes, I know. I can hear his voice. He had a beautiful
voice. Hypnicity. What's his name? On Sundays.
On Sundays, and he did a big one on New Year's.
Yep, and then he recently, he passed away in the 90s, I think, but he lived a long time.
That's good. That's good. Mm-hmm. Well, because everything has frequency, but particularly music and math. And Casey Kasem.
There you go.
Nice.
Casey Kasem.
Casey Kasem. Yep. Hypnicity wins today. Yeah. We're not sure what yet. It might be my old big pot, Hypnicity.
Right.
So
there you go. When you want to change something in your life, change how you vibrate.
Yeah.
We're thinking, but we're not thinking good enough. Come on. Somebody tell us this guy's name.
Right.
Thank you, Hypnicity.
Oh, and Jezreel got it too. Okay.
All right.
So also, before we come into this lifetime, we're at a certain frequency, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're born into the not the triangle, but the circle of karma, the circle of vibration. Yes, smile, it changes your frequency 100%. And then when you come in, it completely changes your vibration, doesn't it, when you're on the planet? I mean, a part of it, a dimension is changed. And then when you leave, I mean, it's kind of our thing before we leave, to come back to that vibration, isn't it? And go through that whole circle of life.
Yes. And along the way, we try to integrate the gifts that we have, right? Mm-hmm. In order to keep our vibration elevated and getting higher and helping others along the way. Yeah. And in so doing our mission, doing our calling, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And and that's really interesting, because it's all remembering, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Remembering what our frequency is. Mm-hmm. And it's really easy when you listen to politics and the plane crash and all the sadness, with Maui and the fires all over the world and everything happening. And that immediately does something to your vibration, doesn't it? Just talking about that. Mm-hmm. If we talk about it with awareness, watching it and watching the emotions as they come in and feeling them and sensing them, bring in those senses again and seeing it.
These disasters are also a big lesson in, like, we're on the planet. We can't say depopulate. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's conscientious building. because Maui, I wouldn't say anybody set out on purpose to start that fire, but once it started, it was hard to change because the natural lay of the land that Gaia had put there to make sure river ran through it, water ran downhill, had been changed in order to put up housing, but with disregard to what Gaia's plan was on how to keep the place safe. So, and we are both transmitter and receptor. So what we give off is what we're going to get back. And if we walk around in that negative, like there's people out there saying, "Oh, it was done on purpose," blah blah blah. I don't want to hear that. Prove it, and then maybe I'll listen. Have a theory, but keep the theory to yourself till you have proof, right? But it is just not conscientious building that is creating a lot of these disasters.
Yeah. Teresa Ford, amen. Some of us look for the helpers and join them while others seek to blame and wallow. Yep, 100%. Because it's, and again, no judgment. I mean, that's where they're at, and that's cool. But that toxic relationship, I think as your vibration changes, and you're more light filled,
Yeah.
that you are aware then of a toxic relationship. I remember when I was younger and I thought toxic relationships were so exciting. If somebody was really weird and screaming or doing something wild, I was like, ooh, what is that?
Oh yeah, we get drawn in, don't we?
Yeah.
Instead of really listening to what's going on and does this person need help? Should we call 911, right?
Yeah. Well, even that part of it. Yeah. Like spiritual sobriety. Ooh, that's a t-shirt.
Oh, I like that one.
Watson. I love that one.
Yeah, that's really, I'm going to remember that one.
Yeah.
So remember last week when we were talking about the kids laying on the grass and looking through the grass and they're, what's in there. So we are all cells. And as we zoom in, we see more and we see more. And it's the minuscule things that do start to pop up, which is also part of all of that, right? And it's we are a physical being in a physical universe, and fundamentally everything is energy to begin with. Everything, because there's an atom in there.
Yeah. And it's funny because it takes us a while to remember that everything is the frequency of love.
Mm-hmm. As I got older and was still involved in going to Catholic school, I went for 12 years.
Yeah.
And there were, that was that hard arm to make your first communion, and that hard arm to get your confirmation, and that hard arm, now you are a soldier of God and a bride of Christ, and all of that stuff. But in high school, even the priests would start to dial in a different tune. Now, of course, I'm in high school in the 60s, so things had changed. The ecumenical council had happened, the nuns had stopped wearing veils, and it was all of that was beginning to happen. And suddenly I hear them preaching, well, God is, you can't put a finger on God. God is love. And there was one priest who wasn't quite the rebel, because he was like, you can call him God, goddess, whatever you want to call her, him, it, them, thus. But ultimately, it is just love.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
He was in it for the right reason, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, then of course he left.
Of course. There's, I remember how shocked I was the first time I saw a nun with hair. I was like, oh my God.
You have hair?
Yeah, because they wore those habits that
Oh yeah,
were
that
quite
buckle.
lovely. They must have been really uncomfortable, but they were really beautiful.
Yes, they were tied down tight, and many of them would also wear thorns around their waist. I mean, things for
Oh,
self-punishment were always on the docket. It's Lent,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah. What are you
not
gonna give
on
up?
your knees on the crack on the cement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's tough. Well, yeah, so, light brings up
Hmm.
vibrations that aren't as light filled, and just like we're pulling everybody up, but not everybody wants to be pulled up, and that's kind of their, it was a hard lesson for me to love people where they're at,
Right.
and especially family or anybody, friends, and, because you want the best for them and you want to change them, but wanting to change people is judging people.
Well, and that's like chasing the future. The best you're ever going to get is near it. You're never going to get to the heart of it. You have to know when to take pause and allow it to come to you, right?
Yeah.
Right. So when we want something, we just change our frequency to match what it is we want. I love these little shorts that they've come up with of Dolores Cannon,
Yeah.
you know, because it just always seems to fit in with whatever it is I'm thinking about that day.
Mhm.
And that's what she was talking about yesterday on the short that was posted was manifestation. And, she's doing that back in the 50s. So,
Yeah. And, Julie Andrews and Sally Field were my nuns. Um,
yeah. And
ethnicity.
then what's her name? Not Natalie Wood. The Nun Story. Who played that?
Sally Field?
No, not the
Oh,
Nun.
well,
The Nun
was it
Story.
Vivian Leigh? No, it was,
No, Deborah Carr did one with uh,
Cary Grant?
Mitchell,
Oh, yeah.
and then the Fields of, and then Sidney Poitier did one, and Thank Heavens for Mr. Somebody or Another was his. The Nun Story was not Natalie Wood, the other Wood.
I can't remember. Vivian Leigh, I wanna say. No, I can't remember. Audrey Hepburn, Susie O said,
No, well, no, not
but she
Audrey.
did play
Oh my
a
God, that's
nun.
terrible. The beautiful Breakfast at Tiffany's. What's her name?
Audrey Hepburn.
Oh, duh. Oh my gosh, look at me. Oh my gosh.
It's okay, it's Mercury in retrograde. You just told me
This
that.
is a bad way to start out on day one.
Julie says the bells of St. Mary's. Julie says
Oh, there
social
you
work.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a great one. That was
yeah. Social work taught me that begin where people are and support from there, and they can say no. I love
exactly.
that. And the other thing is when you look at somebody as a whole soul, like a divine light, and not seeing, oh, poor you, this
Mhm.
happened to you, and that was so sad as a victim. Instead, seeing them as a divine light changes the entire relationship, and it changes where they're at. It's so helpful, especially if you're a mom and you've been doing that.
Yeah,
So
it's with kids. You can get a temper tantrum in the candy aisle, or you can say in a different way. No,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Match the frequency of the reality you want. Oh,
yeah. Right. Yeah. Sally Field was the flying nun. Teresa Ford. Yeah, the
yeah,
bells of St. Mary's.
definitely
Julie
was.
says. Yeah.
This is what she said yesterday, Dolores Cannon. I had to write it down. Match the frequency of reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. There is no other way. This is not philosophy, it is physics. And Einstein used to call it spooky actions from a distance. And he didn't admit that it was even a thing until he was on his deathbed.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. So I was on Mark's channel the other day, Mark Alba or Alpha. We're doing rainbow readers, and we did Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci. And he was at that frequency, right? He was at a different frequency than everybody else was on the planet probably back then. Well, we're all on a different frequency, but because I believe that we all have a different energy DNA. We're all a different aspect of creator. Anyway, so I can't remember where I was going with that, but it was interesting. Anyway, doing Leonardo and doing the difference of how he looked at things and how that really changed the planet, but it changed the planet for years and years, right? And the circle effect that everything has, how cyclical everything is. He was up there with Tesla, you think, yeah, right? Hypnicity. Every action has a reaction. Yeah.
Well, and who knows if he didn't reincarnate as Tesla, and if you think of not his peers at the time, but we also had Nostradamus, and then comes in Copernicus, and everybody discovering all these things about the stars and finding new planets. Even back then, oh, look.
Yeah. Hi, Tony. Good to see you. Hi, Sonia. So there's this other person that I know that I've met a couple of times. It's really interesting. Not that he would ever remember me, but Rudy Tanzi. And he is a scientist, a brain scientist, and he specializes in dementia. And he's won at least one Nobel Prize. But he also is the pianist for Aerosmith. He does not tour with them because he's at Harvard, I think. So he's
got a day job.
He's saving the world. Yeah, he's a brain scientist. I'm sorry, I can't tour this month. But he's on their LPs.
That's too much. I love that.
Isn't that exciting? But I think once you learn how to there she goes. There she is. Once you learn how to tap into that creative energy and that frequency, that you can tap into so many different facets of it. And I think a lot of it is just curiosity, isn't it?
Well, and if all of this is what brings us light to begin with,
yeah.
And the gaps in it is what changes the tone and what we see and what gets reflected and what gets absorbed. I mean, of course he's a brain scientist.
Why wouldn't he be? Sonia says, "Rock on."
Yeah, right.
Amen.
Going down.
That's so funny. Yeah, but and Leonardo was like that. Tesla was like that. I mean, they're the Renaissance people.
Well, and don't you go, oh my God, are you of another planet?
Yeah.
Is that why you knew we were all starseeds? Because you were from another planet?
I was just having my hair done today by a good friend of mine, and she's really into metaphysics, and we've been talking a lot about Jeremy Renner. And he just went through this horrible accident, but he is healing himself.
Oh yeah.
And it turns out he's quite the Renaissance man. Like his IQ is 160 something or something like that.
Yeah.
And he does all these things for kids, and he also plays music and has a recording studio. And I think just that once you get to a certain vibration, it's curiosity, right? More so curiosity than fear.
I agree. Yeah. Like we said last week, it's curiosity is remembering the language so you can communicate with those who aren't on the same level as you,
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in some way you probably already knew.
Yeah. We're already remembering on some dimension, aren't we?
Right.
Their universal law that when we reach out to angels and or our support team, they must respond, assuming it is not for nefarious purposes. The law of attraction, I think, Tony.
Oh, yes. And that would be, that's that high vibration of the white light, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
you may not get, you might not get what you want. Isn't that another rock song? But you can't get what you want. But
Rolling Stones.
but you might get better. You know, that most beneficial outcome that what's his face got us saying, Tom. I love that. And then also, but when I was growing up, it was for the good of all concerned.
Right.
Because the universe is going to bring you something, or your angels are going to bring you something, right? But they might be even better or different, because it might not be in your soul contract to go
right.
to get that
You might not get the
$1 million
answer
prize.
you will get an answer. There's no, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's when we stay elevated, we stay in that higher light, no matter whatever light that we call in. Like I often call in Raphael's teal green, pink healing light.
Yeah.
Or a blue light for protection, But that white light is what I'm actually calling down, so that I remember that everybody has a space.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm in a car on the road. Don't drag me into your world.
Oh, Teresa says, it seems like you're more likely to enter the flow if you vibrate with love. Fear shuts everything down. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amen. He is the beam of light, isn't he?
Right? And so there comes language, words. It's not just what we say to other people, it's what do we say to ourselves? How do we harm our own ego? Right?
Yeah.
By not accepting, we've been raised, especially where my background came from, no ego. You're not, don't, you can't look in the mirror. That's vanity. Oh my God, the nuns had me so scared of all kinds of stuff. So I still have a hard time looking in the mirror for very long, because that was drilled into my head for how many years,
Yeah.
And then look in the mirror and not be judgmental, but say, God, you're looking pretty good for yourself today. Whatever it is,
You can get what you need. I love that, Sonia. Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? So you guys probably all know who Louisa Hayes is from Hayes Publishing.
Yeah.
And she had a very small firm, and then Deepak had published some books, and he wanted to start publishing these, the 12 spiritual laws to success, the 12 spiritual laws to love, and all these different little books. And their publisher was like, nah, we don't want them. So he went to Louisa, and she started her huge publishing company. And I think at 65.
Yeah.
And she was known to, every time she would walk by a mirror, say, hey, hot potato.
I like that. I'm going to adopt that. Of course, I'll have to get more mirrors. I have them. They're just propped up high on a mantle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny. I just learned about pink light yesterday. Yeah.
Yes.
Pink light is amazing hypnicity. Oh, thank you, Teresa. Yeah. So what did you learn about hypnicity? Did you learn about the, so what I know about pink light is it's a beautiful healing light for when someone is at a time that they're very low and they need our love. If you come in through the back of the heart chakra with that pink light, it's one of the softest lights that you can give. Yeah. And it's such a beautiful healing quality.
Rose quartz vibrates at that healing quality also. Wow. And hypnicity, I don't know if you were in the audience last night on Dream Detectives, but we spoke about it yesterday on Dream Detectives.
Oh.
That white light is not as comfortable for sleeping as the pink light is.
Yes, I did hear that. I
Right,
remember hearing that. Yeah.
right. And so the sound bath that I listen to is like a binaural beats, but it's crystal humming bowls, Tibetan
Hmm.
bowls, but they're made out of crystal, and they have different light frequencies put in there somehow, right? I'm sure there's a little battery operated thing close by that is lighting these bowls up. And there's many different frequencies, and you can click on them for 8 hours of straight play, and they play all through my night's sleep.
Yeah. I heard you saying that, and I was like,
Ah,
when I went to bed last night, I was going to find one, but I had to finish part of Ted Lasso. So
well,
one.
you'll get it if you search binaural beats, but if you type in sound bath, they should all just start popping up that way.
Yeah. LOL. I have to say that being a neglected child does have the benefit of having fewer old tapes I have to record over.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sorry about that, Teresa.
Me too.
Oh, that's where she heard it. Hypnicity says
Oh,
that's where she heard it. Um, okay. Tony asks, do you think there is any connection between Elon Musk and Nikola Tesla?
well, yes, because we're all here. There is a connection between all of us, right? I
Yeah.
think I think he is brilliant, but I also think he got a little sidetracked.
Yeah. I don't think it's him, Tony, incarnating into that body. I get a no.
Oh,
But I do think that he has been here before, and I think that he hasn't been here that many times. I think that he's coming straight off planet. And yeah, and Pendulum agrees that he's definitely an off planet being. That and I is he in a human body? Yeah. So I don't know if you guys remember Vivian Chamut that we had on, but she is a hologram of a human or a hybrid, Arcturian hybrid. But she is all Arcturian, and she was talking about the energy that it took. I mean, she was born into her family physically, but it is a different DNA code or something. Anyway, it's just really interesting.
who was this person? Because I don't believe I saw this show.
Oh, okay. Vivian Chamut. She is a Arcturian healer, and I think her channel is Vivian Chamut Arcturian healer. And she's on a lot of shows like New Realities and things like that. But she travels all over the world and she presents the Arcturian point of view. And it's
So I pulled a card for that question, Tony.
yeah.
And I really shuffled that deck while you were doing the pendulum.
Hmm.
And this was the card that was on top of the deck when I picked it up to start shuffling, right? And now it came out again. So there is some sort of a connection.
Yeah.
You know, he certainly understands the theory of light because Tesla understood it. So there is that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Really lacks the social skills, right, Tony? Definitely. Definitely. Just a little. This is interesting. Lori asks, many in the community have spoken about the pink light since the wildfires on Maui. I love when the higher realm brings the energies together. Right, Lori? Yeah. Val from Illumination Portal was talking about these pink lights also the other day and how well, we'll have her on and she'll talk to us all about it. But how they taught her to make little pink tornadoes and pink orbs to send and just to keep sending and sending and sending to all these different places. And it's really interesting. Fascinating. But yeah, that pink light is beautiful. And then Hypnicity says some people believe that Edison stole Tesla's secrets.
He did. They were on the same track at the same time because we never really have a thought by ourselves on this earth, right?
Yeah.
And they were working in a similar field. And at one point, they had communicated with each other. But here in Detroit, we have a place called, well, it's part of the Henry Ford Museum, but it's a working outdoor museum called Greenfield Village. And in there is several things from Edison, because he and Ford were good friends. And when you enter the first Edison electric fix, let's do this for the whole city kind of thing, when you enter that lab, there's a guy in there who will tour and will talk to you about everything. And they're hell bent on getting the truth out that Tesla had a better idea. And Edison, everybody went with Edison's because you can't make money off of Tesla's idea.
I was wondering about that. Yeah. Yeah. And I think his name was Tom. The last name started with a P, Paragon or something like that. That came on, and he was talking about that scalar energy too, and that was really, really incredible. Yeah. Tony asks, "Do you think they both access galactic knowledge?" Oh yeah. I think that. Well, let's ask the pendulum. Entertainment only. But does well, yeah, they're all accessing that galactic knowledge, and
probably why that angelic card came out.
yeah. So is Elon Musk using galactic knowledge? Yes. Is Jeff Bezos using galactic knowledge? Yeah. And is what's his name that owns Virgin? That cute guy with the blonde hair.
Oh, yeah. So I haven't seen him in a long time.
Yeah. Is the guy that owns Virgin accessing galactic knowledge? I think a lot of billionaires are.
Sure.
Yeah.
So not all of them stepped on a ton of toes to get there.
Yeah.
And this is what I got. So the calm on the outside is the warrior on the inside, right?
Yeah.
So accessing that galactic takes a bit of a warrior spirit in order to understand it, translate it, use it, put it to work for yourself every day. Right?
Yeah.
Zuckerberg. Yep. There you go.
Zuckerberg, Branson. Thank you, Tony, and Hypnicity. Yeah. He's so cute. His family's cute. His wife is cute. And he stayed married to her for a long time. I mean, that's pretty impressive. That doesn't always happen in that bracket, the billionaire bracket.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, yeah, that's okay. That's neither here nor there. But it also talked about the circular pattern or movement of each aspect of life itself that moves at a different on a frequency, remembering itself, and how we're remembering all the time. And we're remembering, as this keeps happening and these circles go, we're going into different dimensions, and those dimensions are circling into each other, aren't they?
I love that. Yes. And if we think about it, those who are struggling to remember have dementia, right? If they're stuck in 3D, it's a trouble with that dimension.
Yeah.
Can't get out of it because they haven't remembered everything they needed to remember, what their soul contract is, why they came here, when is it fulfilled, how do you end that contract, what do you do with that, right?
It's a really interesting. So my brother has early onset dementia. He has PCA, I think it's postcortical atrophy, and which is very rare, and he's quite young. He's only 55. But the way that he looks at life has changed, and it's a beautiful thing to see. and the way that their family has come together with love and smiles and laughing. And, there are tears sometimes and there's pain, but there's so much of that love and holding each other that it's a beautiful thing to see. And I'm sure it's a beautiful thing to be in too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a friend whose husband is going through this right now as well. And it started coming on just about the time that they discovered he was getting ill. And he needed, they discovered he had kidney cancer.
Mhm.
But leading up to that, which was a fluke they discovered, leading up to that was his sudden panic attacks that nobody understood where they were coming from. He couldn't drive the car anymore. He called up my friend one day and just while he was out driving and said, "You got to come and get me. I can't do this."
Wow.
So they started doing tests, and from that they discovered that his hip was involved somehow also. And then from that they discovered that he had this kidney cancer. And it's at a place where he will have it the rest of his life. And perhaps that has something to do with his onset of dementia.
Yeah. Mhm. Hypnicity asks, have they been hypnotized to forget?
Oh,
I think that we are all hypnotized to forget when we're born on this planet, to forget that we're divine beings and we come down here to experience this energy. And because we're already divine, aren't we?
I love that. Yes, we are. We are, but I never thought of it that way. I mean, it's traumatizing to give birth, but it's also traumatizing to be the child coming out, right?
Yeah.
And
And I always feel sorry for
think
the
about it.
little, oh, go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
Well, how many of us have been born Frank Breech, Duh. you
Yeah.
know? I mean, that has to be, it's not only traumatic for my mother, but it was traumatic for the child herself.
Yeah.
And if we'd never be born again if we remembered that pain, just like they tell the mother, you'll never get pregnant again if you remember that. And we'll remind you when you come back with your second kid.
Yeah. 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 We are angels, hypnicity, right? Oh, yeah, never gave birth in this lifetime. I did twice, and it was, I love them so much. It's amazing. But I have lots of friends that haven't. Get squeezed through a garden hose. Teresa Ford. That's another T-shirt. Man, we got a lot of T-shirts today. Um,
Uh,
and I think that there's also how they put the little beanies on the babies to keep their
yeah,
head warm. Oh my god, why would you do that? They just squeezed out of somebody's,
yeah.
um,
You need
vagina
to
or whatever.
reshape that head first. Did you look at what came out of there?
Yeah, yeah,
Talk about
yeah,
cone head.
yeah. Oh, this is really interesting. Tony asks, do you believe there is an angelic and/or galactic relationship with people who are on the spectrum? I've heard that people with autism are earth angels.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I was in early childhood development. So that means, yeah, I was a preschool teacher, but I worked with all age groups because part of what our job was understanding the problem child and getting them channeled, not channeled, that's a poor word, but getting them into child find at an early stage so that they get what they need, beginning with their first days of education, so that it is a good and rewarding experience for them rather than something that leaves them unfulfilled, untaught, uneducated because they can't communicate correctly.
Yeah, and I love that, and I think this is something where AI can be so incredible for the kids on the spectrum, and that when finally we get it right and we don't have to teach, all arithmetic and science and everything, that they have to be good at everything,
Yeah.
and they can go into that wormhole, or we can go into our wormhole of what we have a passion for. I mean, I know you have to study everything to figure out where you're going to go, but if you have a true gift, like my son was doing, seventh grade math when he was in third grade, but they wanted him to write essays too. And I'm like, this kid does not write an essay. It's just not going to happen. Anyway, so it's a little traumatic, but yeah, I have people in my family that are on the spectrum, and
And
definitely they're earth angels.
oh yes, and as a
Mhm.
former teacher, I will say everybody is gifted and talented.
Yeah.
Everybody should be taught as if they are gifted and talented, because when you hone in on what it is you want to learn, you don't have to go through the trauma of of going to college and getting a degree that you can never use. That in itself, you know? And the other skills you will pick up along the way, because if you want to study what it is you're interested in, you have to learn a little bit of English. Just don't throw it at kids when they're in first grade. You
Yeah.
know, you know what I mean? It's like, just wait till they're really age appropriate for what it is you're trying to make them do, not train them with that hard rod that they use in school,
Yeah.
especially in my generation. And think about my parents' generation, and then think about my grandparents' generation before that. It was even worse, because most of them couldn't go all the time because they had to go help at home. My grandmother, was one of 16 kids, and she was one of the oldest. So, she didn't go to, she got to the third grade and that was it. She had to stay home.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sad because, the tools that they have for teaching kids that have learning disabilities. I had really bad learning disabilities. I didn't find out until my son was diagnosed with them. I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. And then my dad said, oh my God, that's me too. Like,
We
well,
got,
there we go.
I'm dyslexic. Oh, good. Now there's a reason.
Now we
Use
know why.
that.
But those tools that they use are really tools that they should be using with everybody. Like everybody should have access to all those great things to make things interesting. Being
Yeah.
able to sing a song to learn your capitals, or
It's like a Montessori setup, and that's, I believe in Montessori, the early days of Sesame Street, that's basically what it was. And that's how I got involved in all that stuff to begin with, the early days of Sesame Street.
yeah,
And I didn't have kids. I just was watching it because other people who lived in the same house I did had kids. So,
yeah.
man, this stuff is awesome. Where was this when I was a kid?
It was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Hypnicity, welcome to this. Welcome, because yeah, we've got it all over our family. Um, okay, so we're getting up to the end here. Jim Henson was a genius, and he was one of those geniuses that knew how to do things and how to attract energy, wasn't he?
Who's
How to
that?
attract children. Jim Henson, the
Yeah.
Muppet.
Oh, yes, definitely he was. I mean, he's not the first one to invent a hand puppet that had movement, but he did know how to make it come to life for kids and keep their interest,
Yeah,
right? And make it palatable, and be as energetic as a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old.
yeah,
They, understand that, oh, these, looking at this, I'm learning how to count, but the kid doesn't know he's learning how to count. But
yeah.
and then enter Count Dracula.
Conjunction
Okay.
function. What's your function? Yeah, I love that place. You do some of the voices of the characters, Sonia. I don't
Yeah.
think we'll ever forget it, will it? We Count
Well,
Dracula.
he was monumental in the movie Dark Crystal. He did the Brian Froud based artwork. Was
Wow.
another artist, right? And those characters were based on his artwork, but it was Jim Henson's puppets and his puppeteers. And then he's the voice for Yoda. Searching, found someone you have. That's Grover.
Oh.
It is I, Grover.
He wrote the Dark Crystal Hypnicity, says he was Kermit. Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. That was good. Right. Can't wait to get Diana's books, Jay says. Yeah. Definitely. When are your books coming out? Do you have books out?
Oh, the books. I'm illustrating children's books. So 2 of them are out now and available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. The better deal is on Amazon.
Yeah.
No problem telling you that. And I'm in the middle of doing the artwork for the 3rd book, which we hope to get out in time for Christmas, but we don't hold our breath because, publishers are publishers. So, but the funny thing about these books, is they're based on true happenings in Bluemont, Virginia. And there's bears up there all the time, black bears. There's black bears all over Virginia. And there was one little one that my friend would watch all the time. Well, there's always one little one. So she wanted to write books for her grandchildren. So she started writing these books, and I've been her friend for 30 years. Yes, I'll do the artwork for you. You don't have to ask twice.
Aww.
So we got the first book was ready to come out, and it got delayed, and it got delayed, and then there was COVID, and it got delayed some more. And then finally, as they lifted the COVID restrictions and people got to go about again, it was published. And the name of the book is Mr. Bear Goes Nowhere, right? Oh. I'm sorry. That's the one that came out just as we got locked down. The second one was ready to go, and it got delayed, and it got delayed. And it got released right after they lifted the ban. So Goes Nowhere was right when we got clamped down. The next book was called Mr. Bear's Adventure, just as they lifted the thing. So he went nowhere, and now he's got an adventure. And if we look at what's going on in the political world, worldwide, but particularly in our own realm of things, this book is called Mr. Bowles Goes Fishing. Mr. Bear Goes Fishing.
Aww.
And what's going on? Everybody's fishing for information, right?
That's so true. Yeah. Yeah. It really is.
We'll see when it really comes out. I would say if we keep on target and get it into them before the end of September, then perhaps we'll see it in maybe February or by Easter, maybe.
That's great.
Right. And because the book is about spring, with the way things have been synchronized with these books, right?
Yeah. So how did they find that? Can they just Google your name?
Mr. Bear Goes Nowhere is book 1, and Mr. Bear's Adventure is book 2. On Amazon, they were sold as a set at Christmas time, but I don't think that they're selling them as a set right now. And they're not together,
Okay.
The search separately.
Well, Mr. Bear goes nowhere with an H. Sorry, my H still isn't working. It's sticking. That's why I'm always saying hello.
Hello. How are you? All I want is a room somewhere. Far away from the cold night air.
Right?
One room, one chair, one love now. Wouldn't it be lovely? There's
I
another
love that.
Audrey Hepburn. Oh my God, that went right over my head. I don't know why I was thinking of Natalie Wood. I must be getting a download from her.
Yeah, yeah. Sonia, yeah, if you feel connected to Marilyn, then you are, honey. You know it.
Marilyn who?
I think she's
Marilyn.
talking about Marilyn Monroe.
Awesome, Sonia.
Yeah, yeah. She was a lovely soul. Sonia says,
She
"Love it,
was.
sing it." Yeah, only 6 left in stock, Hypnicity says. Wow,
Oh,
thank you, Teresa Ford. Teresa Ford posted it. So, everybody, well, do you have any final parting things to say, Diana, about energy?
I don't, except keep on vibing in spite of all of these retrogrades that we have going on. When Uranus goes retrograde at the end of this month, that's going to be 7 planets in retrograde. Mars won't be in retrograde. He's just about the only one. And then the moon and the sun. So just keep on vibing. Just keep it high. Keep it in love. We're going to get through this.
Yeah,
We can already feel it. We can already feel it.
yeah. Definitely, definitely feeling it. All right. Well, everybody have a beautiful um, night. And if you wake up in the morning or if you feel like meditating sometime later, we'll have meditation at 7:11. And Send Psychic Gene will be on tomorrow at 3:30 on my channel.
Hey, good.
I'm really excited. 3:30 Central. Yeah. Do you have another show coming up?
On Sunday, Cartomancy Mesquite and I are going to do Nancy Jean's Gardens.
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
That's going to be
I'm going
fun.
to
I
do
love
readings for
Gene.
gardens. Yeah, I love the gardens.
Yeah.
It's a different vibration.
It is a different vibration. I love that she was able to attract that energy to create the garden.
Well, can I tell a little story?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I created this deck of cards, right?
Yes.
And thank you. But what I really wanted to create was a deck of cards that like you could lay out on the floor, because that's what I do. I mix a whole bunch of different cards, decks together when I'm doing readings. The more complicated the questionnaire, the more complicated, the more decks I use. Let's just put it that way. So I was trying to come up with a way of doing that. And I couldn't think of anything that didn't involve a game board. And I was afraid of getting involved in something like that, because there you go with the Ouija board in the Milton Bradley box on the toy shelf in the basement for the grandchildren, right? And
Yeah.
that's not what this is about. So I decided to go back and just do this little oracle deck, right? It's called Clarity. Like
Oh, I love that.
Claire, Au Claire, all the different Claires. So I get it taken care of, printed, and get it out there, get it available. And I created it to give as gifts to the readers who were keeping me sane during the lockdown, because I had just moved back to Michigan and I have nobody to play with, because I didn't move to Detroit area where my family is, right? I moved an hour away from everybody in any direction on purpose. So that having been said, at the same time I'm getting the downloads for this deck, I publish it, get it out there, start sending it to people who kept me sane, and Nancy Jean comes out with the garden. And it's exactly the solution for what I was trying to do with the original plan that I had in my head of creation. And the downloads she was getting, her game board is a silk scarf,
Yeah.
and uses 5 crystals as well as other crystals for stationary corners. And it took the complication out of it, right?
Yeah.
It made it simple. It made it portable. It made it holistic, something that you could carry along with yourself. And it was the perfect solution. So she and I were sharing dreams before we even knew anything really about each other, right? Because, a lot of my answers come in dreams.
Sonia wants to know where it's available, where your card's available.
Oh, so just email me, oilpntr at AOL.com.
And Sonia, I will copy and paste it and put it in the bottom of this too. But here, I can do it right now even. If you can.
Thank you.
1 minute. Yeah. And but I'll also put it in the
Thank
bottom.
you.
Yeah. Let me see. Why can't I do that? There we go. Sorry, guys. Mercury in retrograde, I'd say that, but it's not that. It's me.
I couldn't even hear you. There you go. Mercury is about communication, and I couldn't hear. When you said Audrey Hepburn, I thought Katharine Hepburn, and I still can't figure out why Natalie Wood was coming to me when I was, what was I trying to think of? Who's another Wood? There's James Wood, but that's.
Yeah. Yeah. She's beautiful, though.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. Well, have a fantastic night.
Thank you. And you too. I had a great time, Terry.
Thank you so much for being here, Diana.